What's going on, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Designs by Keegan. I know, what a name, right? I am your host, as always, Keegan Hartman. I am an avid sports fan, graphic designer, video editor, and in this new series, I want to take my viewers, my audience, on a learning experience and teach you all how I design some of my favorite graphic compositions, posters, pretty much anything and everything sports that I've ever designed, as well as maybe get into some video editing tutorials with After Effects and Adobe Premiere in the near future. Excuse me. For now, at least for today, I wanted to show you guys how I designed this Tua Tagovailoa poster. Better yet, I will take you through just how I designed it, walking you through step by step on how I designed this particular poster. Likewise, I will include every single asset within this poster in a Google Drive below. You can click on the link in the description below. Feel free to watch along, and if you're a fellow Photoshop user, I implore you to open up your software and follow along with me and put this awesome poster together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And real quick, guys, before we jump in, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go ahead and hit the bell notification so that you don't miss another episode. This is a new series for me, so I just want to go ahead and give the side note now. It's going to be bumpy. Like, I am not the best teacher. I typically just do what I do and don't really explain. But this is also the way that I learned, and I feel like the best way to give back to this community is to continue to pay it forward and teach others how I create and sort of my creation process. So I may not be the most articulate when trying to convey how I did something, and if you want if you want further elaboration, feel free to just let me know, give me feedback in the comments. It definitely helps me going forward. All right, so this is the poster that we're going to be working on today. This is the final product, the final PSD file. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many layers made up this composition, but it was a tedious process. I would say, though, it probably made up to be one of my cleanest posters ever. And I don't think I'll be able to emulate it as good as I did the first time around, but I'm at least going to give it my best effort and kind of walk you through what my thought process was and how I kind of came up with the assets that I did. So again, it might not be perfect the first time around. I really can't replicate how good this was, but I can definitely offer insight and kind of give perspective on how I created each aspect. So the first thing we want to do, obviously I've got a secondary sample here. The first thing you're gonna want to do to make this project is obviously you're gonna want to open up a new composition. So I will leave this screen blank and we will just go to canvas size for reference and we will begin this project. So typically when I'm working with sports posters, I work with 8.5 by 11, which is letterhead standard, or 4 by 5 for majority of my sports posters. Excuse me, drink break. For this particular presentation, I'm going to be going with a 4-inch width and a 5-inch height. So once I have those settings entered, I'm going to click OK, and you're going to come to a blank canvas. And from there, we're going to get down and dirty, as I like to say. So we're going to open up our gradient here, and I'll actually show you the settings. Why the hell this is not displaying in its entirety is pissing me off. Excuse my French. All right, so what we did here, there we go. Okay, never mind. It's going to display either way. It doesn't matter. So we're going to go into our smart object that I have within the PSD file, being the gradient fill. And we're going to pull up our gradient fill layout. And if you don't know how to get to gradient fill, it's super simple. You're going to go up to layer, new fill layer, gradient, and we could just name this teal blue background. It's pretty good for improvisation. All right, and we're gonna actually take these color swatches from the Miami Dolphins colors. And obviously I'm going to include that asset as well in the Google Drive so you have colors to reference. Typically I like to post them at the top or to the side of my project when I'm walking through a project, and obviously I need colors to reference. So I'll set a swatch to the side, and that's how I'll usually navigate the color palette. Okay, So we want to go over here. I think I've already got the teal. Nope, I don't have the teal already copied over. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to take my dropper tool here. I'm going to click on the lighter teal. I'm going to go Command C for that hex right there. And we're actually going to reset here. So up to layer, new fill layer, gradient. And again, beating a dead horse here. Teal, blue, background. Give it here. So we've already got that layer, or already got that color rather, picked up. And I'm actually, what can I do here? I can actually do this, I think. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we got that dark teal in there. And I'm actually going to bring this bar all the way up. That way we can get both colors involved on the gradient. And over here on our settings for our gradient fill, we want to go down to radial. And that is a little aggressive. So we're gonna keep it the same. We're gonna actually swing this up just a little bit. Just so what we want it to present like is we want it to be darkest to lightest. So obviously you want to give off kind of the radial glow, so it'll be your light teal to your dark teal covering the corners of your canvas. All right, we've got our gradient fill. So now let's go ahead and get to work on our assets, building our canvas and our layout. So a couple of the things I want to point out here. We have a gradient texture, and essentially what I did, I've got it also pulled up over here. With the gradient texture, it was a grid texture that I got from Texture Labs. Again, I'm going to have every single asset in the Google Drive so you can access this. So this is a grid texture that I took from Texture Labs. Shout out to Texture Labs, no free shout outs. I went up to first thing I did, excuse me, I went ahead and I'll turn this off, but Command I, invert. So again, I'll show you. It was originally this texture, and if I bring up my fill, this is what it looks like normal. So let's doctor this up a little bit. Actually, this is what it, dang it, this is what it looks like normal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my blend mode, and I'm going to select color dodge, and it's going to present a subtle, it's a little subtle. I don't think it's too aggressive. Typically, I mean, it's a normal grid, but you add the color dodge, it's only going to show aspects of the grid, not the grid in its entirety, if you get what I'm saying. We're going to Command I, invert. I've already got the invert layer on there. For a little bit of effect, I added some noise. And if we go over to our settings here, yeah, let me go ahead and add some noise here. We'll go up to Spotlight Search, noise, add noise, set it at about 5 to 8%. For this example, we'll do 5, and that's good to go. So that's going to be our second layer that we're going to add onto there. And you can already see kind of the subtle, let me go back to our main file here. Dang it, Tua. All right. So shut all these off. You can see that it's subtly displaying. That's why you swing it down to 13% in your fill, not your opacity. Not to be confused with opacity. You want to bring your fill down to 13%, and it's going to display just like that. Once you invert it, add the color dodge in your blend modes. Voila, that's what you got. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and start adding our shapes for a little bit of effect. So click on our shapes layer here. And again, these are already preset folders. I've kind of categorized everything to help me navigate this presentation. You're going to have a different file. It's going to be the original PSD. These are just reference to every single asset that I have within the file, so you can work with each of them. And I'll break down how I made each of these. Maybe not every single one for time's sake, but try to explain as much as I can. All right, so within our shapes, we've got these little corner streaks right here. I don't even know what to call these, but like little pin nodes that I set up right here in each corner, the top right and the bottom left. I'm directionally challenged. And then to complement that, in the top left and the bottom right, I have these gradient fill rectangles that are the Dolphins orange, and they basically fade into the teal background that I've got going in the background. So how did we get these? Simple. We're going to go up to layer, fill. Let's actually do this just for example. So I'm going to set a rectangle. Let's go to layer, new fill layer. Gosh, what am I thinking? Gradient. There we go. And we've already got the teal displayed, but we're going to go with the orange here. So click on our dropper tool. Boom, we got the orange. Now we want to swing that all the way up. Not like that. We're going to change the direction on this. So we're going to pan this over to, there we go. To pan it over to 145, I believe. Oh God, I'm blind as a bat. Don't have my glasses. That is 168. I believe that says 168. If I can't see my computer screen for some reason, God, I need glasses. All right, so that is how I got that to display. We might want to go a little bit darker on that teal just to get it to blend. You can blend accordingly. Typically, when you stretch these strips out, the gradient will kind of move with it, if you know what I mean. So like, see, if I move it more towards the left side of the canvas, I'm getting more orange displayed. That means it's, trimming down to orange. And if I expand it, it's going to blend more to teal. So that's how I kind of got that to look the way it did. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it over to that corner. We're going Shift Option. I'm going to scale it down to fit where I had it originally. And if I can get it to move and cooperate, this will be smooth. There we go. If I hide that original, yeah, so you get something like that, and that's what we're going to roll with for the design. And what you can do is you can just we'll go to duplicate layer, left top corner, excuse me, gradient fill. Dang it, gradient fill. All right, so we got that. We duplicated it. Switch this up to 90 degrees here, just about, give or take. We're going to set it up like this. Actually, we're going to do this because you want that teal to go. Hopefully that displays correctly. Okay, that's not displaying correctly. All right, so now we want to do this. I think that's going to do it. Yeah, that does give it that. There we go. Maybe tinker with the teal a little bit more so it's showing a little bit more like that. And maybe let's do this. Let's take this and let's take this. There we go. We want that to scale up. And our scale it up, fade it a little bit more. That looks about right. Shift Option, scale that down. We want it to complement. We want it to fit right there. Scale it down a little bit more. Bada bing, bada boom. That's what we got there. All right, so I'm going to close those. And that is how I set those up. Let me go back up and display that. And then likewise for these corner deals, I'm going to be honest, I'm probably just going to include a PNG format of these because it's a whole process in and of itself. I think I made it a lot harder than it needed to be. It kind of incorporated using an ellipse tool along with a rectangular marquee tool. Don't ask why I did it that way. I just did it that way, and that's how I did it. Honestly, I think you can just use the pen tool and get by making the same sort of kind of look with your pen, but for time's sake, because I didn't like doing it, I think I'm just going to include a PNG so you guys can just add that in as an effect to put in the corners of the canvas. So we'll skip that for now. But yeah, I haven't really decided on if I'm going to include that. TBD. We'll see. I guess if you have the PSD, you'll already see it. So anyway, all right. So we've got that set up. Now let's get into the fun stuff. So we've got the gist of our layout. And I think I'll include one more thing here. It's that gradient circle. If you go back to the main one, I've got this gradient circle set up to kind of emulate the sun. I like the colors with the Miami Dolphins. I think it definitely replicates Miami's culture. I think of obviously Miami Vice colors, but second to that, I think of the Miami Dolphins colors with the teal and orange, very vibrant colors. And I wanted to emulate the sun the best I could, kind of complement the palm trees that I got set up there, which we'll get into in a moment. So enough of me talking about that. That is that gradient fill there. And then, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the name badge as well, which is a culmination of a few things here. So typically when I set up any poster, I like to give recognition to the player. And in this case, I wanted to do something a little different with the swatch presentation. What I did is and I'm pressing freaking caps. All right, layer, new fill layer, solid color. And we'll go boom. That is our orange swatch. We're going to go to free transform. We're going to change the size of this, probably thin it out a little bit more. And then I'll show you the method to my madness here. All right. Looks good. And then what we'll do is I'm actually going to swing this above the name badge. We'll hide this. And then I'm going to duplicate this layer. Same rules apply. I'm going to kick this out to go right next to it. I'll actually bring the name badge back up so I can refer to the color that I use on this dark teal. There we go. Perfect. And then I'm going to duplicate that again. Free transform. Muscle memory, baby. Swing that to the side so it borders that dark teal. We'll change this color to white, and boom. There you go. There's your 3 swatches you're working with to underline the name that the Tua Tagovailoa name badge that you've got going on right there. So I'm actually going to hide the original name badge. This group 7, we're going to duplicate it. So right click on the group 7, duplicate. It says group 7 copy. Perfect. We'll take this, free transform again. We're going to bring this over here, and it's going to make a long line of the swatch that we've got. So it's orange, teal, white, orange, teal, white. Originally, I had it looking like this. If I switch this back over 180, this is what it originally looked like. And I think are these uneven? Those aren't uneven. We're good. We're in good shape. All right, so this is what I originally had. I didn't like it. I mean, I liked it at first, but I felt like I do that sort of concept a lot, so I wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit. So I decided to keep with, well, what the hell, here we go. Anyway, so I typically, that previous demonstration, I typically roll with that kind of look for a lot of my posters, but for this one I wanted to switch it up a little bit, kind of give it a little bit of a different twist, and make the name stand out. So I'm going to bring the name badge back up. I'm actually going to hide this group here. And we can actually emulate the typography we got going on right here. We're going to actually type Tua, and for this particular composition, I went with the font Helvetica. Shout out to Off-White, because this is a very popular, this is the font that they use for a lot of their products. I'm a big sneakerhead, so this is how I think of Helvetica. When I think of Helvetica, I think of Off-White. So Tua Tagovailoa. So there is your basic layout of the shapes, grid texture, gradient, everything. Let's get into the good stuff, what I like to call player treatment. It's not a new process, but player treatment can be very complex. It has taken me roughly a year, I think, to master, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But this new process that I've kind of adopted is probably one of the more smoother processes I've come across. And I believe his name is Tommy Boy on TikTok. He's a graphic designer for the Brooklyn Nets. Shameless plug there. If you want to go follow him, I think I'll have his TikTok in my description. But he's been one of the guys I've come across on TikTok that I've found to be super helpful in trying to do color grading, color correcting to players and cutouts. So I'm going to try to execute this the best way I can to what he kind of set up. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this thing through the wash. We're going to go up to filter, neural filter, and we're going to go down to JPEG artifact removal. I know that not all pictures that you throw into Photoshop are going to be noisy, are going to have any sort of grain to them, but just as an extra precaution, I typically like to throw these things in and make them as crisp as possible. I know a lot of people might be like, what are you doing if it's already clear? What are you doing if it's why would you do that if it's already in HD? Well, I do it because it's a force of habit. After that, we're gonna go into high pass here, and I've got my radius at 0.5. I'm actually gonna bring it up just a tad. I think I went with 1.5 last time. Very subtle, nothing too aggressive. You might even move up to 2 here. But there is that. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to high pass. I'm going to click overlay, and there you go. There is that. We're going to click on the subject, right click, convert to smart object again. We're going to go down to filter, and then this time we're going to go to sharpen, unsharpen mask. I've got my amount set at 20%, radius at 2.0 pixels, and threshold at 70%. I might bring that down to 65. And there you go. It kind of smoothens everything up. And when I remove that unsharp mask, it's a subtle difference, but you notice that it's obviously a lot smoother. So um, click on the unsharp mask, present it, convert to smart object. So there's that. Now let's go ahead and throw this in the wash. We're going to start with a curves layer. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take this top portion. We're going to bring the lights up just a little bit. Turn the lights on, baby. There we go. Subtle. Nothing too aggressive. Right click on that curves layer. Create clipping mask. Then we're going to click back on our subject. Click on this right here. We're going to go down to selective color. And we're going to start tinkering with the skin tones a bit. I like to bring out the orange feel of the image, and I want the skin tones to kind of subtly bring those out a little bit more. I know that kind of sounds weird, but it definitely does when you do the right color correcting. It can definitely emphasize certain portions of your image, if you know what I mean. It definitely helps bring out your brighter colors. So um, I'm going to just start shifting around some of these some of these what are they called? Pins, points, what have you. And I'm going to start trying to see what works best for this image. Again, it was trial and error with this. This is kind of the first time starting this new process of color grading. So I just kind of kept it, as long as you keep it on the main colors that are within the image. So like your orange, or excuse me, your yellows, your reds, your blues, your whites, those are going to be your main focal points of all the images being worked on. And mind you, you are going to get the raw images in the Google Drive folder as well, cut out. So you'll be able to drag and drop those, and you're able to tinker with them just like I am. So yeah, just bear with me. It's all going to make sense. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to bring down this white a little bit, make it as vibrant as possible. There we go. Probably a -15 on the Magneta. Science. Maybe I'm butchering the names of these colors. Really don't care. It's that Missouri education. -30 on black for under your blues. Not really seeing much change. So let's go up to cyan. And let's start tinkering with that. That's going to bring it out there. So -20 on our black, yellow. Not really much of a difference. Maybe a little bit. There we go. Magneta, -15. -30 on cyan. And there you have it. So there is your selective color layer. Now, this is a shout out to Tommy Boy. We're going to bring up a levels layer. What we're going to do is we're going to push the lighter portion of this down. So you have your light portion here, your dark portion here. We're going to make a lights or highlights layer with our levels. And what we're going to do is we're going to push this ever so slightly, probably down to 237 is what I got it here. And your output levels is at 0, 255. What we're going to do is we're going to invert this. So Command I on your keyboard. Levels, we're going to go down to our blend mode, click screen, and then we are going to basically get this brush here, turn our flow down to about 35%, and then our opacity to about 35 as well. Scale our brush down, not to an egregious amount. Typically it lets me, there we go. Bring our hardness down to 20%, pause, and play. And sorry. And what we're going to do is we're just going to brush over the, feel like Bob Ross right now. We're just gonna brush over the bright portions, like I did earlier, a little bit in the face, maybe a little on the NFL emblem, but again, not too heavy on the jersey. You want to keep it kind of subtle, only bringing out portions of his skin. That's really going to be the point of emphasis here. So there is that. And we're actually going to rename this. Rename highlights. And then we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to do a levels curve here, right here. Again, this time we're dealing with shadows. We're going to go to levels, multiply. That looks horrible. Command I, invert it, rename, shadows, boom. All right. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same process. Same process, just going over the shadows. Nothing too aggressive. Nothing too aggressive. We're going to go over the shadows here. Bring out the shadows. And yes, there we go. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So now what we want to do is, since we've got this set up, we'll come back to the eyes in a minute. I'm actually going to show you the camera raw filter. And this was the same camera raw that I used on all of the cutouts. What we're going to do with our exposure, 25 here, and the exposure contrast, we're actually going to bring this up to 20. Highlights, also up to 20. Shadows down to maybe minus 25. Whites, I want to bring them up to about 20 as well. Blacks, probably around 10. I really don't mess with the black portion. I'm typically focused on the white, highlights, contrast, exposure, shadows, but again, you feel free to experiment. Texture, I'm going to bring it up to about 40. My dehaze, about 8. And then go to my curves. And then what we'll do here is we will click on curves, highlights. I'm going to do +6, and then same for light, +6. And then here we'll do -6, and then -6 again. And that is going to be this adjustment curves. And so you'll close that, and then we'll go into our color mixer. Again, this is probably my favorite tool in all of the camera raw, dealing with the reds, the yellows, the oranges, and what have you. A little too aggressive on the oranges, so I'm going to bring those up just a little bit. And I might go back into my light a little bit and bring up my shadows, because I definitely notice that the skin is starting to darken up. So if I brighten it just a little bit, and even maybe on the blacks as well, yeah, we'll keep it at that for now. All right, color mixer, yellows, 20, blues. I want it to match that teal in the background, so we'll go -40 there. Aquas, not really doing much, so we'll just keep that. You don't even have to mess with that. We'll keep that at 0. There we go. There it is. Saturation, we're gonna mess with the reds again. Not really noticing much of a difference. Maybe kill the oranges a little bit, probably bring it down to -21. Yellows, probably bring that up to +15. And then aquas, -15. Reds, bring that up just a little bit to +25. Oranges, 30 looks about good. And then aquas, not really noticing much of a difference with aquas, but blues, let's go ahead and bring those up just a bit to 30. And then over to detail, we're going to bring our sharpening up to 10, noise reduction up to about 30, and then the color reduction to about, let's actually go down a little bit. We don't need to be too aggressive with the color noise reduction. We'll go about 15, 16 there. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a preset here. And what I'm going to do for this particular preset is I'm going to name it Dolphins, because we're going to use this on our other cutouts. So there we go. We got that saved. Click OK. Excuse me, Coke's getting to me. And then we're going to go with that. And that is pretty much how I have that set up. Yeah. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make a curves layer. That's not a curves layer. So now, following color raw, once we've kind of tinkered with the colors and made sure everything looks how we want it to, I'm actually going to go back into my reds and give it a little bit more flair on the skin tone. Maybe if I bring this minus 25, Magneta, plus 15, yellows, minus 10, and then we'll bring the reds up to plus 4. All right, so now we're gonna make a curves layer. What we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it all the way up. I know, it sounds weird, but bear with me. We're gonna invert it, Command I. We're gonna bring it up above selective color. We're gonna bring our brush down just a little bit. You can press the bracket keys next to the letter P on your keyboard. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the white, make sure this is on white and then your secondary color is on black. And we're gonna brush over the white portions. I'm actually gonna bring up my opacity to my brush to 100%. And we're gonna brush on the white portions of Tua's eye, even right here. So there you go, there's that. And we're gonna brush over here as well. Brush there, and I see a little bit of white on the middle of his eye, so I'm gonna brush on that as well. And you can already notice that the brighter portions of the eye are coming out a little bit more. But to emphasize this, we're actually gonna go and get a hue and saturation layer from the bottom. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna invert that as well. We're gonna click Option Curves. And we're gonna click that, click OK. We're gonna click Option on the curves layer. We're gonna drag it up to the hue and saturation. You're gonna get this prompt that says replace layer mask. You're gonna say yes. Okay, once we have that, we're gonna go up here. We're gonna click on the hue and saturation box. We're gonna bring this all the way down. We're actually going to bring the glow up a little bit. And I notice that some of that white is actually displaying on his nose. So we're gonna erase that. Okay. Actually on there. Maybe right here. There we go. So there we go. So we've got that, and I'm actually going to, that is way too aggressive. We don't need that. All right, so there's that. I think we're good there. Might eliminate some of that white that's inside his eye there. Right here, I want it to make, trying to make it look as much as an eye as possible. Not easy. All right, so that is our color correction for Tua, at least the middle ground layer. And you're basically going to repeat these steps for all the other cutouts. So I'm just gonna click edit copy, and I'm actually going to bring this back to, you know what, we'll do this. We'll go to file here. We're gonna go to save, and we're gonna go back over here, and we are going to find the middle ground image of Tua in the PSD. And we can actually, you know what, we'll just copy it because it's, all right, we'll paste it. There we go. So there's that. A little bit more vibrant than the first one. A lot more color used in this. So we'll bring that over there, right here. Scale it up just a little bit. Option click. There we go. There is that. That looks good. And then basically that is almost the gist of it there. Again, you're going to repeat this step with your other background objects. All right. Okay, so the Tua in the foreground, you want to make sure that is going to be right above your shapes layer because you want it to display above the rectangle there. And then what we're going to add in here is I went ahead and typed up a, let me see if I can find it here. This one right here. Now, what I did with this was I typed out the number 1, and I'll actually show you for demonstration's sake, the number 1 here. And what we can do with this is, well, scale this up so I can show you the demonstration here. And we're going to click on the layer, and we're going to put, if we go down here on our list, it says convert to shape. We're actually going to click on the shape tool, and we are going to make the fill layer clear, transparent. And we're going to click on the stroke layer. It's going to be that darker teal that we use in the background. We're going to bring up the scale on that stroke. So bring it up to about 13 to 17, and then we'll scale this down. So we'll click Shift, Option. We're going to scale that down. And you may want to, I say that you set the scale to 13 to 17. Not even the case. We're going to click back on this layer. We're going to go to rectangle, and we've got it at 16 right now. Let's bring it down a little bit so it's not too aggressive. Looks like we went with about 5.54 on that, but you could probably do anywhere from 3 to 5.54, probably serve it. And then we are going to add in these diamonds. Essentially what I did for these diamonds as well, basically go over here to your rectangular marquee tool, and then we are going to make a square layer, and then we're going to layer, new fill layer, solid. There we go. And we're going to actually make an orange and a white rectangle here. So we'll set this at a whopping 45 degrees if I can get it to scale just right. We'll scale this down. There we go. And then what we'll do is duplicate this layer. There you are. And then we'll change the color on this one. So we'll go white here. And then we're going to take these two, Shift, Option, Shift. And then we're going to swing those over there. And that is how you set that up right there. Once I get it situated to where it needs to be, that is essentially how you set that up. So let's bring this over here. Boom. This over here. Boom. We're going to group these. Boom. Group. Duplicate. Doesn't matter. Group 9, copy. That's fine. Bring that down. It's going to match that. And there you go. There's your diamonds. That's how you make the diamonds right there. I'm actually going to change the color on this one because it's distracting the hell out of me. Scale that up to fit the one that we have in the background. Maybe stretch it out a little bit more there. There we go. And rectangle tool here. We'll go with, well, I thought I had the right color here. Let's see, what can we work with? We might, I'll just keep it there. It didn't look too bad. Let's go to camera raw. We're gonna make a new camera raw here. Filter, camera raw filter for the background layer. And I'm not gonna mess with, because I think the lights are pretty much set on this, but I am gonna go over to our color mixer. I'm gonna tinker with, I want the skin to replicate throughout the graphic. So I'm gonna try to get it as close as possible without really messing with the texture of the image, if that makes sense. Let's see here. Bring out a little bit of teal there. Maybe down to -20. Orange. Not going to get too reckless here. Going to kind of keep it within some confines. -30 on that yellow. Shadows. Bring that up to about 30. Oranges. I like that as well. And then probably -10 there. And then blues. Bring that up just a little bit. Probably bring up the detail here. We'll go to 30 on sharpening. Noise reduction. Oh, no. I'm wrong. Noise reduction, 30. We'll bring this up to about 12, 13, and then 15 if we can for the color noise reduction. Okay, so there we go. That gives us a little bit of a better glow. Not really messing with the light and exposure because I already messed with it. So there's that. That's your background to a cutout there. All right. Now I know what you're probably thinking. What are these two layers right here? So essentially what I did was to blend it with the background, I basically took the cutout itself and I erased it at the base. What I did was, in the original cutout, you did notice that I added a little bit of color here to kind of blend it in. But on this side here, what I did was I went to the eraser tool. I set my opacity to real subtle. I'm looking at anywhere from 20 to 25%. Our fill is going to be at 35 to 40%. And then I'm going to take a small brush at about 35% with a hardness of about 35, 40. And I'm going to ever so slightly brush over the corners that are exposed. That way it blends in perfectly with the background. And to go over that, I'm going to create a clipping mask to the cutout of Tua. So I'm going to click layer on Tua, and I'm going to go down to create clipping mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these background colors of this teal using your dropper tool. You can click on the background and you can take this color right here and just gingerly just draw or brush over rather the areas that are exposed to get it to blend in the background. And then as a final touch to this, what I did was I took these leaves right back here, and I will show you what I did in the actual composition. I didn't really do much color correction to these. I did add a selective color, and if I go over to my properties here, you notice that I didn't mess with the red and yellows here. I did mess with the greens, however, because that's like the only color that's displaying. Maybe a little bit of the yellows, maybe I lied, but the greens is what I'm focused on. Plus 31 for black, plus 35 on your yellow, minus 26 on Magneta. For the cyans, I put minus 53. And just to make sure I didn't mess with yellows, whites, did I mess with those? No. So green is the only one that I messed with. And what I did was I replicated the process for the player cutouts. I went through and added a shadows and highlights layer, adding to the darker portions, obviously the shadows, the lighter portions. I added the highlights to bring out the yellow portions, to expose it on the corners a little bit more of the leaves. And then the curves layer, which was the original curves layer that I had just to brighten up the leaf itself. So just going in here to our properties, swing this up in the middle just a little bit, ever so slightly, and that's how you get that to display. And then finally, last step here, I went ahead and added Alabama Crimson Tide, replicating this portion right here using the Miami Dolphins Helvetica regular up here in the top portion, and then clicking return on the type layer and writing out Crimson Tide in the bold portion. And then you would take that and replicate it 3 times to make sure it's evenly spaced. And then you write out that right there. You get Alabama Crimson Tide in that 3 stack right there up in the corner. And that, my friends, is essentially how I made the Tua Tagovailoa graphic. Look, man, if you stayed this long and watched this, I apologize. It was long and tedious. I apologize that my process isn't necessarily perfect. I didn't really go over much on how I wanted to deliver this. Wasn't really much thinking involved. It was just think as I go type of thing. But I am greatly appreciative for the support. I'm greatly appreciative that you'd want to spend some time to learn on how I did this. And if you like this, obviously like, show love, comment, and yeah, leave a review. Helps me to know what I can work on in future videos, and even comment what you want to see in future videos, whether it be tutorials on how to do certain video effects, maybe certain Photoshop effects. I know I want to do a jersey swap in the coming future, especially with the draft just concluding. So let me know what projects you'd like to see and kind of what my process is. And yeah, I'm just trying to grow the channel, man. Thank you for showing love, and see you next time.